All right, let's get the chat popped out here, and then we'll get going here. All right, 1 second, folks. We will get this fatal charade. What is good? We will get this chat popped out here in a second. At desktop panel, Microsoft Edge, chat. Recently got a 6800 RX 6800. See, when it comes to the AMD cards, I'm not that familiar, so to give me an idea of what kind of cards you got, what is it the equivalent to in terms of the in terms of the NVIDIA cards? Okay, let's get somewhere. It trade blows with the 3080. Okay, cool. Well, soon as Biden gets up off his ass and gives us that that care package, it outperforms the 3070. It's within striking distance of the 3090. Oh shit. Well, I'm probably going to build a PC from the ground up. And I'm trying to decide whether to go with a 3080 or a 3080 Ti. So let me move further off into the corner, because I know once people hear me talking and see that we're on YouTube, we'll probably be... never mind. I'll just go ahead and go on with it until it turns out to be a situation of if too many people start jumping in, then I'll just open up a private room. Okay, so let's get on with the introduction real quick. Yo, what is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless one of the man, Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with a live stream of Pokerstars VR. And once again, we are here because I am here to collect my winnings, as I made a $1 million bet earlier. Devastator, what is up? I'm going to show you guys 100%. No doubt that Tom Brady's the GOAT. But sit tight, because we're going to talk about this game, because there's a lot to talk about. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. I want to show you guys the winnings that I collected, and I want to talk about this game because there's a lot to dissect here. Fatal Charade and the 3090 isn't for gamers; it's for graphics designers, basically Pixar. Okay, damn. So let me go ahead and close this part. Okay, if anybody can still hear me, please be so kind to type something in the chat. Coon, did you get your 2.4 yet? We're going to do it right now. Actually, it is there, but I got something else to show you guys. So yes, as I was saying, you know what? Damn. Well, I'll go down there and take my free spin here in a moment. But as I said earlier, I made a bet, a $1 million bet. I did win, and I got 2.4 million. So let's put this up here. Put this up right in front of me. And I'll move in closer so you guys can see. The 2.4 million was automatically deposited into my account. I would have liked something where, you know, I see a notification and I hit it and it says you won this, you know, click to collect, whatever the case may be, but that wasn't the case. So the proof that I collected my money is right here in my earnings in my bank account. I have 17.5 million. Before I made the bet, I had 16 million. So that's the proof that I did get my 2.4 million. But I have something else to show you guys too that I got for winning the bet. So we're gonna go into my stash and go into apparel. And Legendary Big Game Championship Ring 2021. This is a ring you get for winning the bet on the Super Bowl. I am going to place this on my left hand. And there you go. That is my ring. Big Game 2021. Champion. Such a beautiful ring. Thanks, Coon. Okay. Now that we got that all out the way, let's talk about the game. Now, even though the Kansas City Chiefs were favored to win this game, I still had a strong feeling that the Buccaneers would win this game. Not because Tom Brady is their quarterback, but because Tom Brady is their quarterback. Now, I know that sounds like some crazy shit to say, but to break it down, I had a funny feeling that the Bucs would win this game, not because of the amazing things that Tom Brady can do, but because the officials might lean heavily in his favor so they can write the great American story. And one of my concerns did materialize. I think the refs got far too involved in this game. Hold on, folks. It's already warm in here. I got to turn this fan on. Turn it on low. And with Tom Brady being 43 years old, well, you know, I'll come back to him in a second. See, the thing about major sports that really bugs me is those sports entities. So you're hinting the game was rigged? Possibly. So much to the point that I think CBS was in on it. And I'll explain that in a minute. Make no mistake, I'm happy that the Buccaneers won the game. And I do think that if the refs haven't gotten too heavily involved, I've never seen a Super Bowl with so many penalties in it. If the referees hadn't got so heavily involved in this game, I still think the Bucs could have won it. But I think it would have been a lot closer. Because Patrick Mahomes is the real deal. That dude fought to the bitter end. I got nothing but respect for that dude. I mean, he fought, and he was still making plays. Fatal charade. The NFL should just come out and say that their games are predetermined like the WWE. And see, as I was saying about this, sports entities, they want their big market teams or their big market person to win. Because it drives up ratings, and it makes money. Take baseball for instance. Anytime the New York Yankees goes to the World Series, I don't want to see it.
Press nothing on my screen.
You know what? Honestly, I feel some shady stuff when I watch the NFL. You know what? Let's go to another room. Let's just set up a private room. Because I don't want to get because I'm kind of getting distracted by that wheel out there. Host. Okay, so we're going to set up a private room where we won't get disturbed. Okay. So, as I was saying, sports entities want their high market teams to win championships. So, when it comes to baseball, they want the Yankees to win it. And I get disgusted watching the New York Yankees play because the officiating is so atrocious. You have a situation where when the Yankees are batting, the umpires basically force the opposing pitcher to put the ball right over the plate in order to get a strike called. Whereas whenever the Yankees are pitching, their pitchers will throw balls way off the plate and it'll still get called strikes. And you have, throughout the years, I've watched some very average pitchers go to the Yankees and have, all-star type seasons because they got favorable calls from the umpires just for the simple fact that they were wearing a Yankees uniform. The Super Bowl was in Tampa Bay. Hint, hint. Yeah, that's another thing that comes into play too, because I think that's the first time that a home team hosted a Super Bowl. And the crazy part about it was, I keep hearing some choppiness. And the crazy part about it was the Buccaneers were supposed to do this around the time that they won their first Super Bowl. I think right before Tony Dungy got fired, the Buccaneers were projected to go to the Super Bowl that year, and it was going to be hosted at Raymond James Stadium. So they thought this was going to be the first time that a home team had ever hosted the Super Bowl. Anyway, we're going off the tracks. So when it comes to basketball, a lot of times the NBA either wants the Lakers or the Celtics to win, and they get favorable calls. I mean, but I had never seen I've never seen the referees be so blatant with their terrible calls during the Larry Bird era with the Celtics. I mean, it was like the umpires were going to make Larry Bird be Tom Brady in terms of the greatest that ever played the game. I've watched so many years of Larry Bird, you couldn't even get within 2 miles of him without getting a foul called on you. So it got to the point where I didn't even want to watch the NBA anymore if the Celtics were involved. And now, we have the Lakers. I think during the Kobe Bryant era, you had a situation where the NBA wanted the Lakers to get back to prominence. So I've seen some years where I felt like the Lakers got some favorable calls during the Kobe Bryant era, and now we have the LeBron era with the Lakers. And even though I haven't been watching any games, I wouldn't be surprised if they've gotten favorable calls, especially with LeBron being the crybaby that he is. If anybody's still watching, please give me a comment in the chat. I want to make sure the chat is still working. Sometimes when I pop the chat out, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I would definitely appreciate a comment. Or I could just oh, God. Let's move this over here. Okay. Thank you, Kuhn. You said it might not be the organization as just the refs has money on the game. Yeah, but then you'd have another situation like that referee I forgot his damn name. That Empire, that NBA referee who got busted, betting on games, or rather fixing games. Um, I don't know if he was doing it to line his own pockets or if he was being pressured by organized crime or whatever. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that when it comes to baseball, Major League Baseball always wants the Yankees to at least be in the playoffs because it's ratings. When it comes to the NBA, they either want the Lakers or the Celtics to be in the playoffs, if not win it all. When it comes to the NFL, they either want the Dallas Cowboys, or when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, they either wanted the Cowboys or the Patriots to be in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. So much to the point where I think the refs have influenced outcomes of some games. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, a few years ago, when Jim Caldwell was the Detroit Lions coach, he brought the Detroit Lions to their second best record in the modern era. They finished up the year 11-5, and they came in as a wild card because Green Bay was just so dominant. I think Green Bay finished up 13-3 that year. They won the division. So the Lions came in as a wild card at 11-5. And sometimes, depending on your division, an 11-5 record is good enough to win the division. And the Lions had to go on the road against the Cowboys that I believe had a 10-6 record that year. And the referees did everything in their power to make sure that the Lions won that game. And what's so fucked up about when you see a situation like that where games are getting fixed is that when the players see that it's obvious that the refs are trying to make sure you lose, some players start to give up. So, as a matter of fact, I've seen it happen to the Lions twice, against the Cowboys and against the Seattle Seahawks. Both times that the Lions were in the playoffs, they were getting fucked over by the refs. And it got to the point where after maybe halfway through the third quarter, the Lions just gave up because the referees had put the game so far out of control. There was no way they were going to come back from those games. And then the Lions just laid down and quit. And I don't think that's a Lions thing. I think that's just a human thing. When it becomes obvious that the refs aren't going to let you win, you give up. It starts to be about protecting yourself and not getting hurt, so you don't fuck up your contracts and that kind of stuff. And that's possibly what we could have seen today. I didn't see the first half of this game, of the Super Bowl. I was asleep. I woke up at halftime and I ended up watching the game on my phone of all places. No point in trying if you know you're going to lose. Collect the check and move on. Yeah, Cyber Dragon was good. Yeah, so that's what I think. Now here's what I think happens when referees are fixing a game. The team that's getting fucked over know that they're getting fucked over, but they keep trying anyway. But once it becomes incredibly blatant that the referees are trying to make sure you lose the game and you quit, that's when the referees stop with the fuckery. That's when they stop with the fucked up calls. But as long as you keep trying, as long as you keep fighting, they're going to keep putting in those fucked up calls. And that's one thing I can't stand about the American culture, that when they're trying to write the great American story, they cheat to make it happen. It's almost like being in a boxing match and the referee starts deducting points because you threw a punch at your opponent. It's fuckery. And after a while, it gets to the point where you stop trying. So that kind of shit disgusts me. Winners write history. Yeah, cool. So this Super Bowl victory is kind of a tainted victory. Now, you sit there and watch the game, and you could say, well, based on how that game went, when you look at the stats and how many yards the Buccaneers put up and how many sacks they got, how many times they pressured Mahomes and shit like that, it's easy to say that even if the refs hadn't got involved, that the Buccaneers would have won. I can't say that because, again, when you walk into a game and the calls start getting questionable, you keep fighting through it. And I have to go back and see the first half of the game so I can find out. Gaming Legends, what's up? I have to go back and see the first half of the game so I can find out exactly when the Chiefs gave up, if they gave up. Mahomes didn't give up. He fought to the bitter end. Now, when I woke up and it was halftime and they did the halftime show, they were talking about the penalties, that it was like 8 penalties against the Chiefs and only 1 against the Buccaneers. When I woke up and they were talking about that, I said, oh, fuck, here we go. I said the referees, the Zebras might get involved and fuck this whole game up and make this one of the most rigged Super Bowls I've ever seen. And so where I think CBS might have been in on this shit is every time a penalty got called on the Buccaneers, it was legit. It was a legit call, and they would show the replay of it. But whenever they called a penalty against the Chiefs, they really didn't show that many replays. So, they didn't want to smear the referees if they were phantom calls. So we didn't see that many replays of the penalties that were called against the Chiefs. And I just don't like that shit. I want to win, but I want to win the right way. I've never been a cheater. But I grew up around some cheaters. And I can't look at a trophy sitting on my mantle knowing that I had to cheat to get it. I can't look at a trophy sitting on my mantle knowing that I had help from the officials to make sure that I was going to get that ring. I don't like that shit. That's what competition is all about, in my opinion, to find out who's the better man, who's the better team. And not to make sure that this team wins because it's ratings and, it'll make us an extra $1 billion if the New York Yankees win the World Series. Throughout my years of watching the Yankees win World Series that I felt were fixed, they've gone against teams that I felt were definitely much better than them. Only in the NFL can a zebra beat a lion. You got that right, cool. And with me living here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and me being 53 years old, I've endured so much pain over the years watching the Lions be bad teams, but at the same time, watching the referees fuck them over. And I can tell you right now, the Detroit teams that they are lamps here. The teams that have won championships here in Detroit, they earned it. They had to go through fucking hell to get it because they had to get past a dynasty and they had to get past the referees. Case in point, the Bad Boys, the 1989-1990 Detroit Pistons, Bad Boys that won those back-to-back championships with Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Dennis Rodman. They spent years having to battle the Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and the Boston Celtics, as well as the referees. They spent so many years getting fucked over by the referees. So, and then when they finally won it, they had to earn it. And it's like Isaiah said, he felt they would have won more championships, but they spent too many years fighting with the Celtics. And there was some knockdown, drag out games against the Celtics. The Detroit Red Wings in the modern era when they won their Stanley Cup that I saw, the first Stanley Cup that I seen them win with Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov and Darren McCarty, which I had the pleasure of meeting him, as well as Scotty Bowman. They had to get past the Patrick Waugh in the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche, in my opinion, didn't exactly have a dynasty, but they played dirty because Claude Lemieux was one of the dirtiest players in the NHL, and they had to get past that. And I mean, I think the Detroit Red Wings probably got their asses whooped by the Colorado Avalanche for years before they finally got past them. Now, when the Detroit Tigers won the World Series in 1984, I was 17 years old at the time. So I didn't see politics in baseball. I really didn't see that much politics in sports, period, because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand politics in sports until I started seeing the favorable calls that Larry Bird was getting. So the only good thing that I can say about this Super Bowl win is that it's out of the way. Because, I mean, this was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing that you were going to see, where a team hosted a Super Bowl in its own stadium, being quarterbacked by the greatest quarterback in history. And who knows if this would have been his only year with the Buccaneers. If they would have lost at 43 years old, who's to say that he wouldn't have, who's to say that he would have came back the next year? He might have hung it up. He might have retired. Who's to say that he wouldn't have got a career-ending injury at 43 years old? Because at 43 years old, if he takes a hit, it's going to take him longer to heal. God knows at 53 years old, if I sleep wrong and I wake up with a sore back, it takes like 2 days to recover from that shit. Brady can throw the hell out of a deflated football. Yeah, he can. That shit that was going on with the New England Patriots, where you had Spygate, where you had the situation with the deflated balls and shit like that. Some of those rings I take away from Tom Brady because the Patriots were cheating. But the crazy part, and they were getting help from the referees back then. The crazy part about it is, in my opinion, the Patriots were such good teams during those years that they didn't need to cheat. But the referees and, and shit like that, and the NFL and the commissioner, as far as I'm concerned, made sure they won it. I think when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, if it were up to the NFL, they would have preferred that the Dallas Cowboys would have won. But I think that by the time the Patriots won their first Super Bowl, I think the Dallas Cowboys was on a decline and starting the rebuilding stage. So they were too bad of a team that the referees couldn't save them. And then I think the Patriots, on the other hand, were a legit team when they won their first Super Bowl. And now the narrative is, be a patriot, be a proud American and shit like that. So I think you had a situation where the referees, if it came in the NFL, not the referees, because the referees are just following orders. They're doing what the commissioner is telling them to do, as far as I'm concerned. That being said, with the NFL, on the NFC side, they want the Cowboys to be involved in the Super Bowl. And up until now, on the AFC side, you had the Patriots. But now that Tom Brady is gone, and the Patriots are probably going to start the rebuilding stage because the Cam Newton thing didn't go very well. So who knows who's going to be the quarterback there next year. That being said, I think until the Patriots become an elite team again, Kansas City is probably going to be that team that they want in the Super Bowl every year, because that's what's going to draw everybody in. Because people like dynasties, like it or not. You said, I thought it was strange when the late night show when the late night talk show hosts are hyping Brady. Yeah, and I mean all this shit going on in a game that they were supposed to be favored to lose. In my opinion, on paper, it sounds like the Kansas City Chiefs were the better team. But that was a big fear of mine because of the Tom Brady mystique that they might do something to make sure he gets his 7th ring and continue to pad his record-breaking stats. So yeah, that it was a bittersweet win. But I will say that next year, because Brady's already said he's coming back. So next year, all that shit is off the table. You know, Brady being to 10 Super Bowls, getting his record 7th Super Bowl ring, the Buccaneers hosting a Super Bowl in their own city, being quarterbacked by the greatest, arguably, the greatest. No, it's no arguably. He is the greatest quarterback that ever played the game. He's not my favorite quarterback. Because Dan Marino is my favorite quarterback of all time, and Don Shula and Tony Dungy are my 2 favorite coaches of all time. But all that shit's going to be off the table. All that shit that made for this great American story is going to be off the table next year, and the Buccaneers are going to have to actually earn it. So, yeah, I got a little bit raspy talking about that. And I forgot to get a drink. Damn it. I forgot to put a drink in my cup holder. But I'll be ready to wrap this up here in a few minutes. And I definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of Pokerstars VR / podcast that I'm having here. I haven't done a podcast in a very long time. I've been having to try to consolidate my time as best I can because I would probably say that with me working the way I do, I'm a blue-collar worker. There's no shame in me admitting that I work in a factory. It's physical. I don't do any heavy lifting, but I'm constantly on my feet and I'm constantly moving around. And you throw in the fact that I have bad sleeping habits, that I'll stay up till midnight or 1 a.m, and then I got to get up again 3-4 hours later for work. Sometimes it makes for me walking into work super tired. And then once I get out of work, the minute I close my eyes, that's a wrap. I'm not waking up again till like 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. Even if I set the alarm, I'll sleep right through it. So with that being said, I've had to consolidate my time because there was a point where it wasn't enough hours in a day. I was working at one point, I was working 50 something hours a week. I'm trying to maintain a YouTube channel, trying to still go to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. I have my son on the weekends, and as time went on and I started getting more and more worn out, I had to start cutting some things. So, trust me, every day while I'm at work, I'm sitting here thinking, damn, this would be a good idea for a podcast. This would be a good idea for a podcast. And then as soon as I get home, I'm like, fuck it, I'm tired. I'm taking a nap. And then that's a wrap. Coon, I don't think Brady is the GOAT when Mannings both have beaten him. You make a good point, Coon, but in some sense, that's kind of a backhanded compliment to Brady, because it's almost like saying that Peyton Manning's the greatest ever because he beat, Tom Brady twice. Shit, take my cousin Floyd Mayweather, for instance. He retired undefeated. Now, if somebody comes along and beats him twice, will that person be considered the greatest ever? No. He'll just be a footnote on Floyd Mayweather's resume. That Floyd Mayweather he won 49, he won 50 fights, but he's got 2 losses to this person, I'm being incredibly biased. I don't think that Tom Brady is the greatest player in NFL history. I'm being biased. I think Barry Sanders is the greatest player in NFL history. He doesn't have the ring to show for it because he played on historically bad teams with a historically terrible owner. I've said this before in the past, that the Lions were never interested in winning Super Bowls. The Lions were always interested in making money and keeping that stadium full. So the Lions would get that one superstar that would put people in the stands, and then everybody else gets fed crumbs. You know, even with Barry Sanders being the great player that he was, and he being the only reason for people to come see the Lions play, he still had to fight to get his money. You know, he had the, rumors coming out that he was going to hold out, that if he didn't get a new contract and that kind of shit. Everybody else got crumbs. The Lions, the Lions are owned by the Ford Motor Company, William Clay Ford in particular. And they ran that team like a factory. They were trying to keep the cost down by not giving players good contracts, but were trying to keep profits up by keeping the stadium full. They were interested in keeping that stadium full and not winning Super Bowls. Nobody wanted to play for the Lions because they didn't give out good contracts. I could go on and on and on and on about the Lions. But what drove me there, I almost went off. I did go off the tracks, but bottom line is, I feel that Barry Sanders is the greatest player ever in the history of the NFL. He doesn't have the rings to show for it. Tom Brady does. That's these debates about who's the greatest of their era in their respective sports, it's all subjective. Because some people will argue that Michael Jordan is the greatest player ever. But he's got 6 rings. And Bill Russell, who played for the Celtics, I believe, has 11 rings. But there was nothing charismatic. There was nothing exciting about Bill Russell. He was a hard hat type player that went in there and got the job done. Whereas Michael Jordan, highlight reel after highlight reel after highlight reel of him scoring 40, 50 points in the hang time and doing all kinds of crazy shit in midair, his ability to create his own shots while in mid-flight, stuff like that. So, Michael Jordan has the highlights to go along with his rings. So, therefore, he's considered the greatest ever. But some people, if you want to go by the rings, you could make the case that Bill Russell is the greatest ever. You said the only thing to beat a Brady is a Manning. I'm trying to think, who did the Patriots lose to in the Super Bowls that they went to? Because Brady had been to 9 Super Bowls and had 6 rings with the Patriots. I know one of his losses was to the Giants. I think the other one was to Philadelphia a couple of years ago. And I can't remember. I don't know if I think the Giants might have beat him twice. So if that's the case, Eli Manning beat him twice. Is Eli Manning the greatest? Hell no. There was nothing amazing about Eli Manning. In my opinion, he did just enough to not lose the game. And I don't feel like he did enough to win games. He did enough to not lose them. During the Eli Manning era of the New York Giants, they were primarily a defensive team. So yeah, these was definitely an interesting conversation. I definitely appreciate you guys popping in, and still nonetheless checking out my my beautiful ring. Oh, it's dark here, so you guys ain't gonna be able to exactly see that ring. My ring for my 2.4 million. I know. I just love throwing that out there for amusement. Hey, but hey, I can't knock you for saying that though, because if I jump up in people's faces and say that, now look, here's my list. Here's my list. The greatest overall player, in my opinion, is Barry Sanders. The greatest quarterback ever, in my opinion, is Dan Marino. But he don't got any rings to show for it. He's only been to one Super Bowl. And he never got back to the Super Bowl because they kept getting their asses whooped by Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills. Now, growing up as a kid, I was a Detroit Lions and a Miami Dolphins fan. I did what everybody does in Michigan and had to get a backup team because the Lions stunk. And I didn't want to be 100% associated with losers. So I decided, hey, I need to get another team. And a kid across the street had a pretty slick looking Miami Dolphins jacket. So I was like, man, I like that jacket. You know what? I'm a Dolphins fan. And I think I became a Dolphins fan like maybe 2 years before Dan Marino got drafted, because I think at the time their starting quarterback was Don Strock. I know my sports. I can talk about sports forever. I'm like a walking sports almanac. I remember so much shit about sports. So a lot of people in Michigan, because they don't want to be 100% affiliated with the Lions are their favorite team, but they also have a second team, the winning team, that they call their team, so they don't have to keep getting their heads busted against the wall, when they have to talk about the Lions. So yeah, the Dolphins was my team. I think, like, with my brother, he was a longtime Cincinnati Bengals fan. My youngest brother's he's a Lions fan, but he's also a Tennessee Titan fan, and he's a big fan of Steve McNair. Excuse me. So that's how I became a Dolphins fan. And when Dan Marino was lighting up that scoreboard, he was something else to watch. That quick trigger, like the way Dan Marino was when in his prime, that was the worst thing you could do was blitz him, because he'll get rid of that ball quick, and dump it off to Mark Duper, or I think Nat Moore was the other receiver that they had. And I think they also had another receiver. His name might have been last name was Clayton. It might have been Nat Clayton. I can't really remember. And then they had that defense that they called the Killer Bees, where like half the starters on the defense last name started with a B, so they called them the Killer Bees. So the greatest quarterback in my mind is Dan Marino. I think the greatest receiver ever, hands down, I don't think anybody will ever debate that, is Jerry Rice. He's the greatest wide receiver ever. Let me see here. Greatest tight end ever? Probably have to say Gronk. Because not only was Gronk good, he came through in the clutch for them. It was like if Brady put that ball where it was supposed to be, Gronk caught that ball and made shit happen. And I'm not saying that because he's a Buccaneer now. It's the truth. Some people might make a case that Tony Gonzalez might be the greatest tight end ever, to not have a ring, but no, Gronk is the greatest ever. Yeah, definitely. Coon Gronk was big, and I'm not gonna lie. When Gronk came out of retirement and went to Tampa Bay, I knew right there Tom Brady was gonna have a decent year, because he's got his number one guy over there, and a guy that he trusts more than anybody. So if he gets in trouble, he knows who he can throw that ball to. So I don't think anybody's ever going to debate that Gronk's the greatest tight end ever. Got the rings to show it. He's made clutch catch after clutch catch. On the other side of the ball, greatest cornerback ever. That's definitely subjective. Some will say Deion Sanders. Some will say Richard Sherman. I forgot the name of that cornerback that played for Washington for a lot of years. And I mean, he played cornerback until he was like almost 40 years old. I forgot his damn name. It's on the tip of my tongue. I know it's going to hit me when I'm not thinking about it. People might argue that he's the greatest cornerback ever. Greatest safety ever. People might say Ronnie Lott. He's got the rings to prove it with the San Francisco 49ers. And he even made it to a Super Bowl with the Raiders, ironically, against my Buccaneers. I remember when Deion played for both the Falcons and the Braves, just an athlete. He is now. There is a little bit of an asterisk that critics were pointing out about Deion. He was an amazing athlete. When you go back and look at his highlight reels, Deion could cover. And he had that explosive speed. He had that ability to quick turn, look, see what the quarterback's doing, keep his hand on the receiver, and then keep up with him. Deion was fast. Deion knew how to cover that field. But the one thing that the critics were pointing out about Deion was that if a 240-pound fullback came his way, you know, he became a matador all of a sudden and would step out of the way and let that dude go through because he didn't want no person trying to tackle that dude. Greatest kickoff returner? You could probably make a case that it might be Deion Sanders. But my all-time favorite kick returner was a guy named Mel Gray, who played for the Detroit Lions during the Barry Sanders era, because he was always that guy that whenever the Lions were losing and it looked like they were certainly going to lose, he was that guy that gave them a spark. Because if he didn't run something back for a touchdown, he at least got the Lions in good field position, and sometimes that would be enough to ignite the Lions that they would make some kind of late comeback. So kick returner, my favorite kick returner is Mel Gray. Def Floyd was good. But yeah, if you want to say that Deion is the greatest kick return ever, okay, I can deal with that. Greatest defensive lineman. Some people might argue Reggie White, Bruce Smith when he played for the Buffalo Bills. Trying to think who was, Charles Haley when he played with the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. Greatest linebacker ever. And you guys can feel free to chime in on this. Greatest linebacker ever. Boy. I have to really take a minute to think about who's the greatest linebacker ever, but I can definitely tell you that Bill Romanowski was the dirtiest. I hated that dude guts. But the greatest linebacker ever? Boy, oh boy, oh boy. You know what? Maybe arguably, Lawrence Taylor. But I think Lawrence Taylor played both linebacker and defensive lineman sometimes. But so, yeah, you could probably make the case that Lawrence Taylor might be the greatest ever. But I would probably make the argument that one of my favorite linebackers of all time might be Chris Spielman when he played for the Detroit Lions. He played his ass off for the Lions. He You know, he was the heart and soul of the Detroit Lions defense. He never quit, even when the Lions were getting blowed out 50-3 or something like that. He would still play to the bitter end. He played through injuries. And I remember one time he said that he would never allow himself to be carried off a field because he had that much pride. He said he would, before he let somebody carry him off the field, he said he would crawl off the field first if he ever got hurt. So it wasn't, you know, his grit, wore his heart on his sleeve. Greatest fullback. Even though he only had one good year, John Riggins with the Washington Redskins, the year they won the Super Bowl, with Mark Rippon at quarterback, you could probably, some people might make that case. Naturally, my favorite fullback is Mike Allstott with the Buccaneers. This dude was 245 pounds, built like a damn brick shithouse, but he ran like a big overgrown Barry Sanders. This was a dude that could easily run people over, but he was juking people. He did both, you know, until he got that neck injury. And then once he got that neck injury, you know, doctors had told him that if you take one more shot like that, you could end up being paralyzed. So his last couple of years that he played football, he was there just to collect a check, and he was there protecting himself. He wasn't the old Mike Allstott that he used to be. So I was like, bro, it's time for you to retire. If you can't get out there and give 100%, you know, you'd actually hurting the team. So I was happy when he retired, because I thought it was best for everybody. You know, walk out of there a legend, and then let the team go ahead and move on. But as crazy as it sounds, one of my favorite fullbacks that I liked watching, Tom Rathman, that was with the 49ers, played with Steve Young during the 49ers during that era, because even though he was a fullback, the 49ers used him like a receiver. They would throw those passes, and he would catch them, and he would lower his head and be like a battering ram. Just for the simple fact of him putting his head down and running people over, he was going to get like an extra 5 yards just off that alone. Because the first dude that got in front of him, one-on-one, got ran over. Didn't matter if it was a linebacker or a safety, he ran him over. So there you have it. There's some of my favorite players at certain positions. With that being said, I think I'm just about ready to go ahead and wrap it up here as we watch the blip go by. And I take one more look. Oh my God. I might accidentally turn off my mic. I hope that's not the case. But if anybody's still watching, give me a comment. Let me know that I didn't, because I accidentally hit the mute button on my wristwatch right there, and it might have turned off the mic. Oh, okay. Thanks, Coon. Appreciate you guys knowing that you guys can still hear me. Appreciate it. So I'm surprised it is 12:14 a.m. here. That's the one thing I love about Pokerstars is this watch right here is the real time. So it's 12:15 a.m. Eastern time here. I have tomorrow off. They elected to give us tomorrow off because we've got a nasty snowstorm headed here, I believe, tonight. And with the Super Bowl being tonight, a lot of people were probably going to call in tomorrow if they didn't already have the day off. So if I don't fall asleep, I'm gonna grab a bite to eat, and I want to do another game stream tonight, but I don't know what to play. Lincoln gonna be making snow angels? Shit. I'm probably one of the few people that's lived in the snow my whole life and still hate it. You know, because here in Michigan, I think, we're surrounded by the lakes. So I think other than states like Minnesota and Wisconsin, we've probably had some of the worst winters you'll ever see. I absolutely hate the damn snow. So you know what? While I'm here, let's blow a couple of the bucks. Lincoln, you borderline Canadian. The Canadian border to Michigan is over by Detroit. There's a bridge over in Detroit that you cross, and that'll take you over into Canada, from what I understand. But I'm on the western part of Michigan, and I live in an area of Michigan that they call Western Michigan, where Grand Rapids is at the heart of Western Michigan, and all the surrounding cities, Wyoming, Kentwood, Walker, Granville, we all form West Michigan. So yeah, with me living on the western, here, look, here's my hand, right? If my hand, everybody knows that Michigan is shaped like a glove. So Detroit is more over there. You take a bridge across, and that's how you get into Canada, over near Toronto. I've never been to Canada before, but I'm going to go sooner or later. Now, where I live in Grand Rapids is more right there. You see the pinky knuckle right there, about right there. So in between that pinky knuckle and the wrist, over towards this side of the hand, is where Grand Rapids at. So to get to Detroit from Grand Rapids, you got to go across the state like that. And to get to Chicago from Grand Rapids, you have to start here, go all the way down around the lake, and come around. You basically have to go around the lake to get to Chicago. So I love that, Michigan is shaped like a glove, so it makes it easier to explain where we live at. Let's do a spin here. And give back some of this 2.4 million that I won. But I'm not going to bore you guys to death playing with this slot machine all night. It's like a torch lit. But I'll be ready to wrap this up here in a few minutes. I thought doing a podcast style stream in a game setting, especially being that I made that big bet on the Buccaneers, I thought this was a fitting way to come back and talk about the game. So I definitely enjoyed this. And like I said, I plan on staying up for a little while. So I'll go through my library and see what other game I can play tonight. So I definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in. Big shout out to you, Coon. You were definitely active in the chat, keeping the conversation going. I definitely appreciate it. While I'm at it, I forgot to give a shout out to my UK partners, Hand for the Win and Kevy D. We've become the three amigos, and we definitely enjoy doing some streams, and we definitely gonna be doing some more streams. So always a good time with them. So shout out to my UK brothers, Hand for the Win and Kevy D 77. Well, I think that's going to do it for me. I'm getting thirsty. I'm starting to get a scratchy throat. And I think I've run out of shit to talk about. But congratulations to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for getting me my second ring. My second Super Bowl ring, because I got my first Super Bowl ring with the Buccaneers. Back, I think, in the early 2000s. I can't remember the exact year that the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. I want to say that it might have been like 2000, 2001, I believe it was. Yeah, something like that, Coon. We'll go like this. We'll do it like that. Dude! When the Buccaneers won their first Super Bowl, the big story of that Super Bowl that dominated that Super Bowl was John Gruden. He was the new Buccaneers coach that replaced the fired Tony Dungy, and he was going up against his old team, the Oakland Raiders. And the funny part about it was the Buccaneers traded away some draft picks and some money in order to get John Gruden. So that was the big story there. But I don't think in any way, shape, or form that Super Bowl was fixed. I think that Super Bowl, the Buccaneers outright won it. The Buccaneers had an amazing defense that year, and because they still had the majority of the players from what Tony Dungy had built. And the Buccaneers were an elite team there. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Because this Buccaneers team, even though the talent was there, the potential was there, they kind of just exploded on the scene this year. But that Buccaneers team back then that won the Super Bowl, they had went like 2-3 years in a row projected to win the Super Bowl, but they had problems getting past like Green Bay and Philadelphia back then. The offense couldn't score any points, so if the defense didn't score any points for them, a lot of times they lost. But nonetheless, that Buccaneers team back then earned it. They didn't really have any, in my opinion, like superstars on there that they like a big super giant free agent that people said, oh yeah, we're going to win now. They went out and got Brad Johnson, which I felt he was a reject from Minnesota, which I didn't think he was that good to begin with. I think the reason he ended up being the starter over in Minnesota is because they were looking for a reason to bench Randall Cunningham, who ironically led them, the Vikings, to a 14-2 record back then. Anyway, going off the tracks again. But yeah, that Buccaneers team back then, they actually won that first Super Bowl. They earned it. They played their asses off. And ironically, they won it from the wild card position just like they did this year. So, but again, congratulations to Tom Brady. Tampa Bay Buccaneers got me this beautiful Super Bowl ring here, championship ring here that I won for placing that bet on them. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and book you on out of here. We'll see you on the next stream, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being active in the chat. I really, really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. You guys know the line. Wakanda forever. Long live the king. And will it let me do a deuces? Nope, but deuces. We'll see you, everybody.